Okay, we're going to go really fast through some of this stuff. As mentioned, I'm Matt Richins. I'm from Rackspace. This is my get out of jail free card. It basically says anything I tell you is probably going to change or could change, and you can't hold it against me. Really quick about Rackspace. We're a very large company. As a Racker, I love working for Rackspace. If you're looking for a new career, shameless plug, we're usually hiring. You can't beat it as a company. Where we sit in terms of the Magic Quadrant with infrastructure as a service, we're up there where we should be. We've got a lot of good thought leadership. We've been around a long time with our OpenStack. But when you talk about managing what you have on the cloud, right, what we have is we're the leader. So when you come to us and say, Rackspace, I just don't know what to do with this cloud stuff, whether it be Azure, Amazon, Rackspace Cloud, private OpenStack, however you want to skin that cat, we can do that for you. And we are the leader at it. So here's our agenda. I'm going to go quickly over mobile apps and how that works. We're going to have that unavoidable introduction to containers because some people, it's still new to it. As cool as it is, unfortunately, it's just not proliferated yet. We'll containerize some stuff and we'll go from there. So let's first talk about mobile apps. So this was, just quick about my background. I ran IT for a very large video game company. I had mobile apps, I had MMOs, I had a lot of stuff. This was a very popular gambling app, so if you're ever wondering how do I make an architecture for gaming and it's going to make me a lot of money because those are very profitable, it would look something like this, right? Very complex, a lot of components to it, everything running on their own servers, and of course we did it all in the cloud where mobile apps should be. At a simplified version, it looks a little bit something like that. I have player matching. They go in, they say don't run in firewalls in games. We ran in firewalls. Trust me, it'll make your life a little bit easier on the security aspect. But it goes into there, your game servers run their logic, and everyone's happy because they're playing their games. Most people are just sitting there and you wouldn't know it. A slightly more simplified view of our platform, right? So we had up here our game APIs, and if you look at this, the way we had to treat our services was each service runs on its own cloud server. It worked for us. It's cheaper than running a dedicated server, but I still had to use cloud servers for each of these. And then, of course, we had our own back-end API services, our databases that we used. And anybody who wants to talk about how we did that, I'll be more than happy to talk to you guys afterwards, because that's not why we're here. And then just one last thing before I get into the whole meat of this is, of course, if you're doing any type of mobile deployment, you're now agile, right? Well, you can still do waterfall, and you're still following some sort of CI/CD pipeline. You're doing your source code management, you have build tools, continuous integration tools, and they're probably going to look something like that. And then you'd, of course, deploy into somewhere cool like Rackspace or AWS or Azure, VMware, pick your poison, Heroku. You'll have tools like Scalar and RightScale. But this is really what matters, right? So I've just showed you how to run one app. And what really matters are these two pillars that you have down here on the side, policy management and security, right? Those right there, that's going to dictate what you do with your mobile apps, what to do when you get your intrusions, who's trying to hack. Just to give you guys a statistic, I got on average 40 to 80 million attacks a day, right? Just because fanboys like to get extra gold and fun things out there on their servers, and there's some smart kids out there. So security policy management, it really matters. So let's get into containers real quick. Henry Ford said if you'd asked people what they wanted, they would have said faster horses. If you'd asked me what I wanted, well, I was telling everyone, give me a WPAR on a P-series. For the love of all, let me have some Solaris servers. I'll go out and I'll set up global zones and I'll containerize those. And I wanted to be able to have this isolation and security practice that you just couldn't do on x86, right? Sorry, I'm a bit of a nerd, and I know most people don't care about mid-range. The world is x86, but that was my world. I wanted faster horses, kind of. And so along come containers. And containers are the new way of doing what I've been doing on mid-range on the x86 platform. And this is, like I said, the obligatory. We got to go over containers. In a nutshell, virtual machines, you got the whole OS contained in that file, right? On a container, the OS is not contained. It's not part of it, right? I have a very, very small subset of my binaries and my libraries, and I run my app on top of that. And in my example up here, each one of those three stacks, the green, orange, and red, can be Java 1.6, 1.8, and 1. Are we at 1.9 yet? I don't keep up with Java. I don't think it's out yet. So why containerization? It's lightweight. And not only is it lightweight, like I just described, it's easy to ship this stuff. It's easy to move. If I wanted to deploy in one cloud, I had to go out and build off of their image. I had to rewrite all my config management tools to deal with that specific cloud, and I ran in a lot of clouds, right? And it took a lot of extra work on my team's time to go out and manage for those different things. With containers, I don't have that problem. I just say, oh, do you have a container service? Can I stand up CoreOS? Or do you have some sort of whatever I can use? And I just put it there. It's so much easier. It's shippable, and they're smaller, right? I can check it into a Docker registry, and I can go from there. But here's the catch, right? There's always a catch. So this comes from CERN. CERN's a heavy user of OpenStack, and they're the ones who put out this analogy saying when you go start doing things in cloud, you have to shift your mindset. You have to say, I used to have a server, and I treated it like a pet. If it got sick, I cared for it, and I nursed it back to health. But in the cloud, your servers are like cattle. If your cattle gets sick, you get another cow, right? Well, containers require a little bit more of a mind shift, right? Because cows are still manageable. I can look out and count my cows. Containers are more like ants, right? They're just everywhere now. I've got all these servers out there, and I have to assume, because I'm taking my application and chunking it up, so instead of one app on one server, I've got all these microservices running across a bunch of containers, and I have to assume they're not going to be durable. It's cool if they're durable. Most of them are going to be durable, but I'm going to make the assumption that they're not durable, right? Because there's some mean kid out there, some hacker who wants to get into my system, or there's just some bad infrastructure, there's something that's gone wrong in the code that makes this container fail, right? And so I tend to want to have more insight. This is one of the things we've been working with Docker on, is their plugin. It lets me actually treat containers the way I should. I look at them as process threads, right? It's like doing a PS on a Linux system. I can see exactly what's running. I can see how it goes. Insights makes it even easier because I can drill into it. And so this is how you want to think of your containers. So we're going to pause there, and I'm going to just kind of shift. Now that we've introduced you to containers, we're going to talk about what enables containers. There's two big tools out there. The first one is Mesos, right? So if you're thinking I'm going to jump into this and I want to look at some way of scheduling across my system, I want to have access and visibility to all these resources that I can use, and some sort of mechanism for doing it in an organized manner, you're going to start looking at Mesos, right? It's a very mature, been around for a while in the Apache organization. It lets me take pools of servers and share them and have visibility to what they go, and I can say I want it to be scheduled here, and I just don't have to worry about it once I set it all up. I got a term sheet that I'm just going to skip. You guys, will be our homework, right? And then we're going to get into Kubernetes. Kubernetes is my other way of doing things, right? It's kind of one of those same concept. I have a pool of resources. Kubernetes is going to be my scheduler for it. I don't care where it gets deployed because that manages it. And it comes with this built-in load balancer that's going to make my life easy because as my request comes in, it'll just scale it across to wherever I put that Docker image for me. And it makes my life simpler, right? I don't have to define ports and all that other fun stuff like I do when I do a Docker run. Again, I have a term sheet that I just put in here for anybody who's interested in later. And then, of course, there's Docker, which makes all this. Docker is our mechanism for containerizing and doing all this stuff. And Docker is essentially a system of, C groups, namespaces. When you get into Swarm, you have etc distributed, which also helps with Kubernetes, which is a way of taking the etc services and just distributing it. We're not very creative in the IT world sometimes, right? But that's all it's going to do. And the cool thing about containers, and this is what makes them really lightweight, is they're copy on write. So as I make changes and I iterate and I make my version controls I start with my core container and now my coworker starts working on it, it's not rewriting everything. It's just going to write the delta changes, and I got a history that I can run back in. So that makes them extremely efficient when it comes to this. And so this is my thing. So we got a learning check for you. Question: if Mesos and Kubernetes gets in a fight, who wins? Anyone want to take a guess? Anybody? No. Docker wins, right? if a lot of people will come to us and say, well, Kubernetes is better, just like Pup and Chef had their religious war. We're starting the religious war with Mesos and Kubernetes, and it's really not how it works. Kubernetes is declarative, and it focuses on that side of microservices, like what am I going to do with them. Mesos is more of a framework and how I should use them, right? And of course, Docker integrates with all of them, so Docker wins. All right, so let's talk about containerizing stuff. You guys remember this? This was my game application thing. I had hundreds of servers to run all this stuff. I had microservices running across every one of them. And it was just a very sprawled, messy way of doing it. Well, we go back now and I say, well, what if I had to containerize this? What would it look like? Well, now it's this. So instead of having hundreds of servers, I got 30s of servers on my large MMO, right? And that thing was massive. If I could have taken that from hundreds down to 30s, I would have loved it. It would have made my life so much simpler. If I could have seen Docker process threads versus what's going on in a server and trying to triage and correlate it all, it would have made my life way easier. But what's the impact to me? Well, it saves me about $17,000 a month just in that. As an IT manager, you know what I could do with that kind of money? I could hire more guys. Oh gosh, I really, really wish, like this is what I was asking for in containers, right? And some of you are sitting out here going, okay, yeah, you're selling me a rainbow unicorn, right? Yeah, I don't know if I can believe you. So I'm going to back up my statement with a real life example here. Anybody ever play Augur.io? Isn't that the funnest game in the world? I love that game. My kids turned me on to this, and I said, you know what, I'm going to make my own Augur server, and I'm going to use the Augur code, and I'm going to spin up a server, I'm going to get New Relic, and I'm going to capture metrics, and I'm going to see what happens. So I put it on an old traditional cloud server, and then I did what any good person in IT does. I got the best beta testers in the world to go out here and find the exploits, right? These are my kids outside the Liberty Bell in Philadelphia a couple years ago. But, this is them now. Yes, they are wearing New Relic shirts because we're that kind of family. I did. I said, kids, go out and break this machine, right? And they did. And they found all sorts. And I know they found exploits because when my boy logs in, and 30 seconds after logging in, he's way massive compared to me. I'm like, oh, this kid's cheating. I just got to figure out how. And that's what they did. They're very good at cheating. The younger generation, you gotta love them. And so as I'd finished, figuring out what they did, and this is what we do with our beta tests, right? This is what you do with your applications. You find people to break them. And so my kids, they broke it, and I hardened it, and I figured out what was going wrong, and after everything was done, and I followed my good process, I put an email out to all of Rackspace and said, guys, come break my server. Come log in, come play this game, go crazy. And if you look here, I logged in at some point and said, okay, I got 256 users, and this is awesome, right? I can see what's going on. That's a pretty significant workload. And once I understood my baseline and I had some good players running on it, I said, okay, well, let's now pop over to the New Relic portal and see what that looks like. So if you look here, I got a 4-core server, 8 gigs of RAM. Why did I pick a server that big? Because that's what we do in IT. You go to the developer and you say, hey, what do I need? And the developer goes, yeah, I really don't know. So you guess, right? I hate to admit it, but we always guessed. And I'd go out and put something out in a cloud server, and finally we kind of got out some standards off of metrics we took over time. I can get by with 2 cores and 4 gigs. And so I guessed, and I guessed high because I didn't know what the code's written in Node.js. I'm not a programmer. I'm not going to go through and figure out where all the errors are. I'm just going to guess. And so I ran it, right? And when you look at that, of those 4 cores, I used 4.6% of total compute. That's it, 4.6%. So I'm paying $144.18 a month to get what comes down to $8 a month of compute. Right? And this is what would have made my game servers so much cheaper had I containerized them, because I was doing the same thing. I was paying $50 to $150 to $200 a month per server for what came out to be a couple dollars of compute a month. Right? That makes me a sad panda, guys. I don't want to pay that kind of money. It's not a good thing to go through. Right, so this is why I'm saying. And then let's get into the deployment method. I showed you that, guys, that CI/CD pipeline before. So download this, run the code, test it works. Up here on the traditional build, that's exactly the command line I use to build this. Right there on the right, the Docker build, That's what I put in a Docker file, right? When you look at it, my traditional way took me about 30 minutes to build it, a little bit more. My time to deploy on Docker build, I'm nice saying I did 5 minutes. Really, it took me about 2 minutes, but it always sounds cooler to have a 5 in there because it's divisible. I'm a numbers person. Anyway, so here's how the CI/CD pipeline works, right? Instead of me going through all those systems and tools, now I'm just going to work in my Docker file. So I check it, I get code checked into a repo. My CI server does what it's supposed to do. It compiles, it tests, it builds the image, it pushes into Docker Hub, and Docker Hub says, ooh, look at that, new version. And I push it out. I'm done, right? So it takes what I used to have to write some automation scripts for and makes it a little bit simpler for me. Same thing if I'm the user and I'm just working with it on my laptop or wherever I'm on, or I'm sharing an image. It's the same thing. Once I get it in, I push it into that source control, whether it's GitHub or Atlassian or whoever it is, right? But GitHub tends to integrate a little bit better. The Docker Hub looks at it and goes, oh, look at that. Got a new version, and it just pushes it out for me, right? It runs onto my host. So it simplifies what I have to do, and of course, that all ties back into what we at Rackspace recommend is the good way of doing IT fulfillment, right? IT as a service, everyone's looking for that, I don't want to call it the single pane of glass, but they want to have that perfect, if I do it in Cloud A, it works in Cloud B, it works in Cloud C, and it works in Cloud D mentality. And that's what containers do for me. Because I could go out to all these different cloud providers now, and I can just run it in their container service. So it fits into my map and my way of doing things. Now, I'm going to do a little bit of a live-ish demo on Rackspace container services, because this is a shameless plug. I'm from Rackspace. I want to tell you why we're awesome. And we're awesome because what we did was we created OpenStack. And we took that knowledge and what we're good at with OpenStack, and we said, let's now take Docker, let's run it in libvirt on bare metal machines, so no hypervisor to get in the way, nothing to slow me down. I'm not going to put it on our cloud servers. I'm going to run it just on pure bare metal, use libvirt and LXC to do my isolation. My tongue went on strike there. Isolation of the machines themselves. And Docker Swarm to help manage the node clusters, and then we're going to do AppArmor to secure it. So as I'm talking, and I've been playing with it down in our booth downstairs, as I'm talking over the Wi-Fi where someone's out sniffing my traffic, all they're seeing is an encrypted session, right? So you can't actually sniff what I have going on as I'm working with my environment. So it lets me stay a little bit more secure in how I do my IT work, which used to scare some people. So. You guys know how it goes with demos, right? I do this 1,000 times a day. The minute I get up to show you guys how it works, that's when it breaks. I wasn't sure if I could trust the Wi-Fi here, so I cheated. I pre-recorded my demo. I know that's totally cheating, but here we go. Julie, can you pop up the demo video, please? I'll just show you guys what's going on here. So essentially what I did was I log into Rackspace Services as getkarina.com, right? I've already clicked on create a new cluster. I'm typing in at FutureStack. And if you watch that as I talk, it'll take a minute to create the whole cluster, right? That's all it takes to create the cluster. Playing in my other thing, I download my credentials, right? So if you see them right there, I just drop them right into the actual directory itself. I source that docker.env file, and that's all I need because I've already got Docker installed. When I run a Docker info on this, you're going to see right there that I've got 2 nodes running across all of them. I got 24 CPU, right? All the memory that's in there, and then I highlight that IP address because that's my public IP address. So I'm getting public IP addresses on there. Here's my Docker images. I pre-built that Ogre game code into this. So what I'm just going to do is I'm going to go in and run that same augur.io code, basically with this command docker run it-d, where I'm mapping port 40,001 to, which is the external port, to internal map port 443. And I'm saying, and when you launch, run this service, which is basically, it's a Node.js source code, and so it's basically I'm telling it to launch that JS code, right? And now I've just kicked off 2 of those instances, and they're up in, what would that take, 10 seconds, roughly, right? And when I run my Docker PS, you can see that they're already running. And then what I'll do is I'll pop over here into, oh, actually, I'm going to show you PSA first. Okay, just so you can see that I have a lot of other images in the background. We run, like I said, we run Swarm to manage all this. So what I'm going to do here now is I pop over into the actual browser itself, and I'm going to go to augur.io to get the client. I do an IP redirect to that public IP address I kind of highlighted earlier, the 104 dot whatever it was. And what that does is that goes out and loads the game. And this is kind of running slow just because I had about 5 other virtual machines running at the time I filmed this. I'm sorry about that. The game actually runs a lot faster. But when I log in, and right now I'm on port 40,001, you guys can't see it up there. You know, just to show you, I put in the name FutureStack. I got my leaderboard. There's my game running, right? What did that whole thing take me? Less than 5 minutes, if you really think about it. And then just for fun, I opened up another browser tab to show you running in port 40,002, just to show you that they're completely isolated and they actually perform just fine. And again, you know, the load time is more for me to go authenticate and get the client from the Augur side. But once I get that, everything's up and running. So that it was that simple for me to put this game up versus, you know, the weeks that I did trying to learn how to do it. Now I took this and put it back out in the Docker hub, in the Docker registry, right? And so now anybody who wants to do this on themselves, they don't have to go out and recreate what I did. They just log into the registry and do a Docker pull, and you've got my game with everything that I've put into it in a matter of, what, 2 minutes as it downloads a 600 meg file? How awesome is that, right? This is why we push Docker, because not only does it save us a lot of money, but it also makes our life easier. And if you're a security person like me going, okay, how do I know you haven't put a virus or tampered with it? Fine, download my thing, run Docker history, and you'll see every command line I've run, right? That's what makes these things reliable and secure. So I want to encourage you all, our Docker service is free right now. It's going to be free for a while because we're calling it beta, even though it's a very hardened infrastructure. Getcarina.com is the website you go to, and you can sign up and run it for free. Encourage everyone to use it. And I got 2 minutes for questions. So does anybody have any questions for me? If not, then I want to just thank you all for your time. I really appreciate you coming out to hear what we have to say. And by all means, if you do want to talk privately, I'll be right here off to the side. Thank you.
Thank you very much.